Fernandez, a given release, and Colomb is in with the flag down. Teo Colomb laces that into the gaping nets in behind Callum Irving.
Is one of the best from set pieces. Can he create a little bit of magic here for York United? Mo Babouli, he's done it! He's found a little bit of magic. It is all over and York United have their first win of the 2023 season.
Some of the sights and sounds from week 3 in the Canadian Premier League. Hello and welcome to the CPL Newsroom presented by Volkswagen. My name is Christian Jack, and that's right, week 3 in the CPL is in the books, where 2 more of our fantastic cities, Halifax, Nova Scotia, of course, and Calgary, Alberta, were able to welcome the CPL in respective home openers. But that was really where the home cooking stopped on this weekend. In fact, all 4 games this weekend saw the home teams fail to win. We started in Halifax, where Halifax Wanderers won. Vancouver FC won, was enough to share the spoils. Theo Colomb's first half goal was equalized by Sean Hundle right before halftime for the share of spoils there in front of a packed Wanderers grounds. Atletico Ottawa, the defending champs, continued their struggles to start the season. The regular season champions didn't score again at home, and they lost by 1 Mo Babouli free kick to 0 in that game. And on Sunday, Maya Bevan put Cavalry ahead in their home opener in Calgary before Kian Williams found an equalizer in the second half to keep Valor unbeaten in the CPL. And the finale on Sunday, Pacific FC 0, a Woobens Passius goal to 1. That was enough for the difference as Forge get their first 3 points of the 2023 campaign so far. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. Of course, if you're watching live, and we will get to them over the next 45 minutes or so. Of course, if you're listening to this later, we of course appreciate you spending the time with us. We start our newsroom recap with Sunday's heavyweight showdown. Let's bring in Charlie O'Connor-Clark for that, our own correspondent. Before we play the highlights, Charlie, I got a big question for you first of all. Who's winning the Stanley Cup, mate?
Oh, not the Boston Bruins.
Yeah, I thought you'd get that one in.
Oh, yeah, that's what I had to do.
No Bruins, no Avalanche, no Lightning. Who's winning the cup? It was a good
weekend. Christian, it was a good weekend.
I had to give you that. You've waited a long time.
I'll stick with Edmonton. Because I can't say out loud that I think the Leafs are going to win the cup. But,
okay,
you know.
Producer Benedict, he just actually said he thinks the Leafs will win the cup, even though he said he couldn't say it. So we can correctively just clip that, and we've got the clip we wanted. All right, so Charlie's going with the Oilers, but we know where his heart lies. Let's get into this game. Heavyweight clash, as I called it. Overall, what number out of 10 would you give this one? And our number 1 question out of our 5 for these in terms of its overall compelling factor in this game.
I think I have to stick with just a 6 for this game. It's obviously 2 very, very good football teams, but the second half, you see Forge kind of very comfortable to absorb pressure, and Pacific really not getting much done with that possession and that pressure in the second half. Forge obviously scored the goal early in the game, and from there they're kind of cruising in a lot of senses. So I think there was some good football played in this game, especially in the last maybe 20 minutes. But we have seen more maybe bombastic games between these 2 sides before.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. But again, it was one of those games, was it not, that Forge found a way? I mean, I think Pacific, we're going to get into them in a second, Charlie, but they walked off the field wondering, how do we let that get away from us?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, as you mentioned, Forge finding a way, which they almost always seem to do. Again, Pacific had so much of the ball, so many chances in the second half, but really none of them were that dangerous. Forge were very comfortable to keep them to the outside, force shots from distance, and maybe force them to whip in crosses and things like that, which Forge's center backs were really, really comfortable with getting rid of.
Yeah, very comfortable getting rid of. I thought Janssen was very good. Obviously, Mandrake James, we'll get into him in a little bit, is very good as well. I thought also, by the way, the goalkeeper, I thought he was very good, particularly coming off his line, Tristan Henry, and his athletic ability. Another player who was very good in this game, Ashton Morgan, let's go to Starlight Stadium and get some reaction from the left back after this one.
What do we say? We bend, we don't break. Champions find a way to win games, and we showed that we are comfortable sometimes not to have the ball when we're usually used to having the ball. But it's a great defensive performance from the first 11 and the guys that came in. We clean sheets, win games, and help win games, and got our 3 points, and we're gonna move on to our next match on Friday.
Friday against York. We'll get into that later. Charlie, was it exactly that then? Forge digging deep, not bending and not breaking, I suppose, just bending. And is there something to be said that, again, another game that Woobens Passy has found a way to win? Every time he scores, they never lose. His record is fantastic. We get to the problem with Gazdov a little bit later. But what about Passius and Forge just continuing to find a way here in partnership?
Absolutely. And Woobens Passius just seems to find himself in the right spot all the time to score these massive goals for this club. I mean, again, we can talk about Gazdov and the error there, but for Passius to climb all over Thomas Meyer-Giguère in the box there and get his head on that cross in the first place is really impressive. And again, Bobby Smirniotis compared him to Kyle Larin after the game, is another player that he's coached, which is a pretty lofty comparison, but as such a young player who is consistently able to do a lot with, even when he's not starting. Last week against Halifax, he comes off the bench and again, not a massively flashy goal, but he gets his body in the right spot to deflect into the net. And other than that, in this game, Forge not necessarily putting the pedal down and trying to play this massive attacking football in the second half. Maybe there's some fatigue going on. They traveled for the first time this year, but they're very comfortable off the ball in this game. They sometimes they dominate with the ball. In this game, they kind of dominated without it.
Mm-hmm.
For Pacific to have, I think in the second half, they had 10 shots, but I think they only had like 0.79 expected goals, which is pretty indicative to me of how, low quality a lot of their chances were, just because of Forge kind of plugging up the lanes and stopping them from really getting anywhere dangerous.
Yeah, some comments in the live chat about Pacific's attack. We'll get into that in a second with more, though. Here is Bobby Smirniotis on Woobens Passius.
With Woobens is you give him games and he scores goals, and that's his best attribute. It's similar to a player I coached years ago in Kyle Larin in that end. The more they play in the games, the goals come to them. He's just an excellent player in the box, and not only the goal, but he's got 2 other very good chances in the first half that are probably easier finishes than the goal. And we know that's what we get with him. But we've got a great group of attacking players today. Taron Campbell also did a very good job. In the attack, we had a different formation, let's say, than the way we're defending, and giving a little bit more emphasis in the box. And I think the guys did a very good job in the first half of that.
Yeah, interesting talk about from Bobby. Almost like it looked like a 4-4-2 out of possession at times in that game, which was an interesting look. All right, Charlie, time for your list of greats. Which players on either side do you think reached a threshold where you felt like they stood out above the rest?
Well, I mean, we have to start with Mandrake James, as we've said before. I think he won possession 8 times, 7 clearances in this game, 4 interceptions. Just looking so unbelievably comfortable in that side, despite just getting there. He's getting better and better every single game. And he has a good relationship going, I think, with Alex Janssen in there, where he's kind of the more reserved defender who does a lot of the last-ditch defending, and Janssen can play out of the back more. There was one play where I think Josh Hurd is coming in on the break, and James just catches up to him and basically manages to get his foot around him in front to tackle the ball very cleanly in the box, and it was very impressive. Lots of other Forge players. I think we have to call out Kyle Becker, who gets to start again for the first time this year. Yeah. And you can just see how he really makes everything tick, especially in the first half. When Forge, before they'd scored or when they were still maybe looking for another goal, he was really the link, maybe playing a little bit more reserved than sometimes he would last year. I think he maybe let Alessandro Hojabrapor get ahead of him a few times, which was interesting. But he obviously is the guy that sort of sets the tempo on that team. And just, I know that Pacific lost, but I think we have to shout out Manny Aparicio again, because he comes off the bench for the last half hour and they are a different team. Just a completely different team with him on the pitch. Much more dangerous, much more energy to the way that they move the ball. He alone, I think, had like 3 shots and he created a load of chances, and he really was running all over the place in that half hour of work that he had as he comes back from an injury. So once he's back in the starting lineup, I'll be a little bit less concerned about Pacific.
Yeah, no doubt about it. We'll get more into that attack in a second. With more, though, let's hear from Amir Didic, their defender, after their 1-0 loss.
The whole play there was just a matter of them breaking the line in between our midfield and back line, and from there on, kind of reactionary defending from us, and kind of being able to backtrack and kind of a panic station mode there for us as a back line. You gotta. There's guys that can hurt you on that team when they get into pockets and they churn and they play and cross, and that was an example right there of what happened. And it goes in the back of the net. It's unfortunate with Emil, it just slips through his hands, but he's been great for us, and he's a young goalie, and he will continue to grow each game, and we have full support in Emil, the whole squad, the staff, everybody, and as a team, we have his back always, and there's things that we definitely need to look at that goal and see like how it breaks down all the way to get all the way there. So, yeah.
Of course, referring to Emil Gazdov, the young goalkeeper that has now made a couple of mistakes inside the first 3 games, despite winning a game, and a significant one as well, with a great penalty save in the Canadian Championship. Let's go back there and get some more reaction. Here's James Merriman, Pacific FC head coach, on not getting any points from this game.
We didn't start on the front foot. We started a bit on the back foot. We conceded not a great goal. I haven't seen it back, but it kind of reflected where we were at and how we were playing, how we started. And then it changed. I think we finished the half okay, still giving them a little bit too much respect. Second half, we showed more who we are, how we want to play. We were on the front foot. We were quite dominant on the ball. But again, we need more urgency, more quicker decisions, more decisiveness in front of goal, and more detail in our final pass, or recognize the opportunity, and eventually you need to reward yourself and score goals. Otherwise, you can't win matches. So it's frustrating. It's 2 matches in a row, but it's still really early. So we'll learn. We have things that we know that are clear that we can work on and improve. And if we do get that right, we can be very, very dangerous. So full confidence that it will come, but frustrating to drop points today.
From Jeff, who's watching live, says Pacific still struggling to find goals. Kikuta Mane not going to be a solution for him in that regard. What do we make of this, Charlie? Like, they started off all their games at home, unlike everybody else. What was an unbeaten run coming in this was just mainly one goalkeeper away from continuing that unbeaten run. But you can tell in James Merriman's voice there that they need more clarity in the final third. I thought Ayman Salouf was great again in a lot of areas. Maybe they need more of him and Manny Aparicio on the pitch together, which hasn't happened a lot. What do you think of that? Is there some concerns? And have they left points on the table now that they'll be regretting here after being at home that amount of time?
Yeah, I think you never want to come out of a 3-game homestand with, 1-1-1 record. That's not going to be good, especially considering how many longer road trips they have later in the season.
Right.
It's tough because there is so much attacking talent on that roster. We're talking about Salouf. Josh Hurd is one of the best direct kind of ball drivers in the league. They've obviously got Easton Ongaro, who scored more goals than pretty much anybody in the CPL. And I think it will click for them eventually. But I think what was frustrating for James Merriman in this game is I think that he felt they were maybe overthinking things a little bit in the attacking third. Players taking 2 or 3 touches too many, when sometimes you just need to smash it, or just take an attempt at the goal, test the goalkeeper a little bit more. Tristan Henry was good in this game coming off his line and aggressive, but he didn't have to make a lot of sort of reflex saves because Pacific they only had 2 shots on target out of 50. And I think both of them were fairly distance efforts that weren't particularly dangerous. So I think James Merriman felt like they were maybe trying to get a little bit too cute with it at times, trying to find a more ideal situation to shoot from, when sometimes, especially in the CPL, you just need to take your chances. You just need to, send more balls at the net and make more chaos happen in some ways. Because if you just pass the ball around the perimeter a little bit of what time, looking for the perfect opportunity, it's not going to come, especially against a team that's as well organized as Forge's defense, right?
Yeah, no doubt. Very well said. All right, so where's the next test coming, Charlie? What's next for these two, and what do you expect for them in the next week, CPL week 4?
So for Pacific, it's a big one. They're off to Ottawa on the weekend, which is where their season obviously ended last year. And it's going to be an important one on Saturday, where Ottawa, again, are another team that makes you break them down. And that'll be a similar test for Pacific to try and find a way through. I think they'll probably focus on training this week on breaking through a block, breaking through a low-lying team and finding a goal, finding those easier goals, those simpler goals. Which will be a tough one. And then meanwhile, Forge, they're sort of on the road, so still taking a bus there from Hamilton, but they're playing York at York Lions Stadium in a derby that's always pretty lively, I think, in the CPL, and fairly evenly split, I think, especially the last couple of years, even though Forge have all the championships and the better record over time. York have always played them very well. They've always been up for those games. Including last year, Moba Booley did a number on Forge a couple times, I think. So that'll always be a fun one as well. I'm sure there'll be lots of traveling support as well from Hamilton.
Yeah, and a shorter week for them. They're, for those who don't know, they're flying home as we tape today on Monday lunchtime. For those watching live, keep an eye out for a big story developing later around that club. And if you're listening later, you'll obviously be aware of that. Thank you, Charlie. Enjoy the rest of your day. And of course, catch Charlie's analysis and everything else on campl.ca. Earlier on Sunday, Cavalry kicked off their home portion of the season against Valor. Benedict Rhodes is in for us as he breaks this one down. Let's bring in Benny. Before you break Cavalry Valor down, who's winning the Stanley Cup, Benny?
I'm going to agree with Charlie. I think it's Edmonton Oilers. I think Connor McDavid, not only is on my fantasy team, so I would like that for that reason. But he's been fantastic. He's picked up as the season went on, so I think it's going to be Edmonton Oilers.
I'm trying my best for everybody listening out there to get the name Maple Leafs out of 2 Maple Leaf supporters in this area, but it's not working. All right, let's figure out what is working and what's not working with these teams. Cavalry Valor, as it was said in the chat by a couple of people, last year many people would have expected a home banker. It didn't turn out that way. It was 1-1. What did you like about this, and what was the compelling factor number for you in this, Benny?
I'll go for a 7.5. I think this game had everything around it with the Cavalry home opener. We know how good they have been at home historically. Valor top of the table after 2 games, still top of the table after 3 games. And in this game it was end to end at times. Like you saw there, Ali Musi was so direct in this game. He was making everything happen for Cavalry down the side, and Valor weren't going down without a fight either. They're playing with confidence, I think, at the moment, which is important. So when they maybe lacked at times last season, but they've looked good so far early in the season. Even if they haven't had 3 wins, they've looked competitive in all 3 of those CPL games, and I think that's a promising thing for a team that's full of injuries at the moment.
Kean Williams with the shush of the foot soldiers. Benny, you a big fan of the shush celebration or no?
I am personally. I think I know the home fans don't like it, but I think that's what makes the away fans like it even more. Like. It takes a lot of confidence to do that, especially after scoring a goal like he did. Firing it over Marco Carducci's head is not an easy thing to do. So I'm a big fan of this celebration.
No, let's get going. I don't mind that at all. Like a little bit of wind-up merchants is fine by me. Ali Musi had a very good game in this one. We'll get into him in a minute. Had a great opportunity late in the game and, of course, an assist. But before we get to Cavalry, the story really is resilient valor. And I use that word because you used that in your analysis. Again, campl.ca, check out. The resilience of this team is, I think, something we need to talk more about. Unbeaten 3 in the CPL, top of the table. And this time they found a way to get points from a losing position. And they've got a ton of injuries as well, Benny. What's impressed you the most about the character of this new look Valor team?
Yeah, like you said, the injuries, I think, are a huge factor. So many of their players who you'd expect to be starting these games, Andrew Jean-Baptiste, Raph O'Heen, Matthew Chandler just went down with an ACL injury. There's a lot of players right now who aren't in the team, but they're players who are stepping into the team aren't letting that really phase them. There are a few players with a lot of confidence. People like Pacific Nyongabir, Matteo Debrienne, some of these players who are fearless at times. They don't really care, I don't think, where they're playing or what the challenge is. They just go out and do their job. I think that's impressed me the most about Valor these first 3 games. They just know what their task is, and they find a way to at least get something out of the game. So just something that, again, last season they sometimes struggled to do.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Let's go back to Atco Field at Spruce Meadows with reaction. Here's Valor boss Philip DeSantos.
We knew we would need to fight. I think that we saw in the first half, it was no surprise that they would come with a lot of energy. We knew we had to somehow survive and weather the storm and not allow the fans to get in the game, and I don't think we did that well. So you get the injury of Pianelli, and we need to make a few adjustments in the team, bringing Dante out of that midfield. So it made it challenging for the guys to find their references fast. I think that it was important for us to get through halftime, still with being close and still with a chance to fight for the result. And I think that when we had the chance to adjust a few elements in halftime or during halftime, we came out a lot better in the second half. And I think that the guys were rewarded for their fight, their spirit, the mentality in which they approached the game, the commitment they had towards each other. But they understand that every point is valuable.
Very well said. Okay, as for Cavalry, 3 draws in a row in the CPL. By the way, that's the first time since 2019. Not getting a win at home. And you could kind of hear a little bit of frustration in the words of Tommy Wilden after the game. Let's go back to Atco Field and listen to the boss of Cavalry and the reaction to their 1-1 draw.
I think we could have been better. That's the brutal honesty. We should have been better. We had chances, but we were very average with the possession today, which was disappointing because I thought last week we had to grind it out. This week we wanted to enjoy it, and I think it was just one of those that we didn't do what we had planned and worked on, and that's what's disappointing for me as a coach, because I know this group is a very talented group. Now they've got to show it.
Very interesting comments there. We always love in the media anybody who's honest, and it's a little bit of motivation, I think, towards his players externally there. And he did come into the game, Benny X, saying to the team, just go enjoy yourself a little bit more. That certainly wasn't the way that they played. What do you make of his honest comments there, particularly around their attack?
Yeah, I think like you sort of said there, like I think it's trying to get a bit of a reaction from his team. 3 draws is fine. It's 3 points, you're unbeaten still, but this is a team with very high expectations. This is a team who has, as you said off the top as well, has historically been very, very good at home. Historically, never really been fazed by Valor at home. I think they came into this game expecting 3 points, and when they didn't get it, they were kind of frustrated at times throughout the match. And when they didn't get those 3 points, I think there was a sense of disappointment. Like they wanted 3 points, they expected 3 points, and it didn't come to them. And I think that's you said very, very honest words from Tommy, but ones I think he wants to sort of use to kick his team into gear a little bit.
Talking about kicking it into gear, remember this time last year, the first 3 games they didn't win again, and then they went on a club record unbeaten run. So they'll be certainly hoping to kick into gear there. With more reaction, here's their goalkeeper and captain Marco Carducci.
Yeah, I think the first thing is we're disappointed to come away with a draw. We start the season off on the road with 2 games and earn 2 points there, whereas I feel like we lost points today, and I think that's the feeling we have. But credit to Valor, they stayed in the game, they challenged us. We weren't able to kind of get that footing early in the second half, and obviously they score. But like I said, we're disappointed that we don't get 3 points.
Okay, Benny, time for the list of your greats. Which player stood out the most for you in this one on either team?
Yeah, for Cavalry, I think it was Dan Klomp in center back. He was fantastic. I thought he didn't really let anything happen for Valor. Same with Aduka beside him. They were pretty strong all night, and also on the wing, Ali Musi was fantastic in this game. He set up Mario Bevan's goal. Probably could have had another one himself late in the game, but he was fantastic. And for Valor, I think it was Keane Williams. He scored the goal. Very nice finish. Very promising from him, I think, so far early in this season. And Andy Baquero, I think, is quietly having a very good season so far at right back for Valor. He set up the goal sort of indirectly with the cross into the box, and defensively sound, I think, in this game as well.
Actually, let's get the Keane Williams clip ready in a second, and we'll play that. But before we do, there's a comment in the chat about Debrian, who played left back, and Ali Musi basically just owning him in this game, is it? And some concerns about Debrian, but he is playing a different position, Benny, right? With obviously Jordan Haynes hurt, and has been pretty good. I think he was in the team of the week actually already this season. So what did you make of that matchup?
Yeah, I don't think Debrian has been that poor. I think, like you said, he's been playing a left back, sort of a necessity really for Phil DeSantos' team. Last year is more of a winger or a forward. So I don't think he's been poor. I think, Ali Musi, the best left backs in the league, struggle against Ali Musi. And
good point.
And when Debrian is playing out of position, in a position that I think him and Valor hope he doesn't have to play for too much longer, I'm not too worried about that.
Good point. All right, let's go back for the final reaction from this 1-1 game. Here's the goal scorer for Valor, Englishman Cian Williams.
Yeah, no, it's good. We're just trying to take it game by game, and that's the main thing. Picking up points. This is a tough place to come to, but yeah, we managed to get a point, and unlucky not to get two.
They wanted more. They still are top of the table. All right, Benny, what's next for these two? What do you expect from them in week 4?
I expect both of them to want to go after 3 points again. I think Valor are going to be home against the Halifax Wanderers, who are also going to be looking for 3 points. I think that might be a very exciting game between two teams who are going to be looking to continue their decent starts to the season. And Cavalry are going to be away at Vancouver FC for the first ever game in their home schedule. So that'll be a big occasion, and I think they're going to want to go there and put on a show and kind of spoil that party a little bit, like Valor did to them this weekend.
That will be great. C-Mac in the chat says, Ali Musi's consistency in the attack has been so great to see so far this year. Certainly, obviously, a diamond right now for Cavalry and their attack going forward. All right, Benny, we appreciate your predictions and thoughts for next week. A reminder, CPL Predictor is back, brought to you by our friends at TonyBet, campl.ca/predictor, where you choose the correct scores and you could win $20,000, tickets to games and much more. It's all there on the website. We continue here on the newsroom, CPL Newsroom, presented by our friends at Volkswagen. And to the third match in the weekend, we go backwards on Saturday now. And Mitchell Tierney is our reporter in this one. Mitch, you're a noted Maple Leafs. No, I couldn't even go through with it. Our Habs fan, Mitchell Tierney, who's winning the Stanley Cup.
Oh, man.
And how much are you loving this right now?
Yeah. I don't know if I've even watched a playoff game, but I'm going to do it because Charlie's saying in the chat, the Toronto Maple Leafs are going to win the Cup so that I can jinx it. There you go.
I love it. I can't wait to see if that happens. And then we can all celebrate Mitchell celebrating the Maple Leafs. All right. For Mitchell's sanity, let's move on. And Atletico Ottawa took on York United on Saturday. You were there all over it for us and covering the game. And wow, what a lot of storylines coming out of this one, mate. I feel like you get a lot of the storylines every week, which is great for us. Before that, what number of 10 out of 10 would you give this one in terms of the compelling factor? And because there's a lot of stories, maybe it's a number that's quite high.
I actually went for a lower number because I do think it's a compelling game. But I went for a 5 out of 10 because I thought the match itself actually was a little bit disappointing. And I even raised it a point because of this Babuli goal that you're seeing on the YouTube now. Fantastic goal of the season. But for me, from Atletico Ottawa, just such a disappointing performance. We'll go into the concerns a little bit later, I'm sure. But that's 7 straight matches without a win at home between regular season and playoffs. You have to go back to, I think it's August 17th, 2022, when they beat Halifax 3-2 at TD Place Stadium for their last win. So, this is a club that's really trying to build a fan base right now, and they're doing very well at that. But, to build a fan base, you have to offer some excitement at home, and especially in that first half. I think they had like 4 touches in the York box. They barely were able to hold onto the ball. Just a disappointing performance all around. A club that you're hoping this year would be a little more proactive versus kind of reactive. And I just thought it was, maybe a truly boring performance from Atletico Ottawa in this one. And, I don't think York would have minded that at all.
No, there's a lot to get into on both these teams. So before we do the collective, let's do the individual. Time for a list of your greats. Which player stood out above the rest in this one to shine, despite it being a 5 out of 10 match?
Yeah, I thought there were a couple. Obviously, Mo Babuli, his moment of magic. I don't think there's another player on the pitch, maybe other than Ollie Bassett, who can strike a ball like that into the corner, and maybe even him. So that was a moment we've kind of been waiting for from Mo this season. So good to have that from him. I thought Brian Wright was excellent as well up top, obviously starting over Ozazi Di Rosario again, which is a bit of a storyline, I'm sure, but created 2 chances, and I really liked the way he pressed the ball. He won the foul that led to Mo Babuli's goal, and obviously in games against Ottawa where it's so difficult to create chances, stuff like that really, really matters. So I like Brian Wright, obviously Giansopoulos holding them in the match, 5 saves. An underrated save, I thought, on a missile from Gianni Dos Santos, hitting it like only he can, which was dipping the whole way. Like that's a very good save from him, I thought. And obviously on a C point blank. And on the Ottawa side of things, a guy who I think has been maybe a little under talked about this season is Luke Singh at the back. Someone who obviously Espejo gets a lot of praise, but beside him, he's third in the CPL in accurate passes. He won possession 10 times in this game. I thought there was a few times where he had the opportunity to step up into the midfield and win balls, and I thought he was excellent there. So I really liked what he did, and obviously York didn't have much going forward, and I think Singh was a big part of that. But yeah, those are my greats.
Yeah, I love those picks, and Singh has been very good for them, no doubt about it. And we'll have to find out just how injured Espejo is, who left the game late in that one, to find out whether Singh may need to be even more valuable in that one. But in the end, the hero himself was Mo Babuli, and that's football. The week before, he didn't necessarily shine and was the major reason to give the ball away that led to Vancouver Football Club's first goal and first win. Babuli certainly had that on his mind when he talked about winning this game the following week.
We know guys are going to make mistakes, and I'm one of those guys. I made a big one last week, and I knew I had to come back and fight even harder this week to make up for it. But the theme that we're trying to have is, we're going to make mistakes, and we got to help each other dig out of those mistakes and get results and find a way to find positivity in what we do. And today was one of those days.
Mitch, York United unbeaten in 7 in all games they've ever played at TD Place against Atletico Ottawa. Just a remarkable stat. But now, how big of a win was this for them to pull this off, particularly after the first 2 home losses?
Oh, it was huge. I think they needed, some positive vibes, any positive vibes around the club, considering how it's gone this season with the injuries, obviously the off-field stories. There's been a lot of not great for York so far this season. But I think this is a win that it almost maybe wouldn't have come if they had a few more losses before this one, where they're able to stay patient and positive through all of a difficult low block from Ottawa, and just wait for their opportunity, not force it, which I thought was something they did very well, because we all know what Ottawa can do when you try and force chances against them. I think there was maybe one where Sumaro had a bad touch at the back and Salter gets in. But other than that, I can't remember too many opportunities that York gave them in the first half, at least. Really important to get Mo Babuli going. Obviously, we've talked so much about how critical he is to their success. So having a moment like that for him, but they've got some huge matches coming up as well. So it comes at a good time. Obviously, we'll talk about it a little bit, but Forge next week, and then, the Whitecaps after that. So if there was a time to get going, it was right now. And I thought this was a big win for the Nine Stripes.
Yeah, really good point with what's to come as well. Last week, we praised Atletico Ottawa for not losing when not playing well. Well, now they are not playing well and they are losing. We'll get Mitch's take on that in a second. But before that, let's go back to TD Place, and here's their gaffer, Carlos Gonzalez.
I feel that in the first half, it was a couple of different moments of the game. I think that the first 15 minutes we were in the right path. I think that we were doing things in the right way. But after, they start to grab the ball and be a little bit more dominant and make us drop a little bit more. And it's true that we have to clarify certain mechanisms that made us drop in certain moments. And of course, when you drop, you can concede this type of situation. But mainly, I felt that in the first half we were not very good in the recovery moment. I think that we weren't capable to take out the ball of the pressure, and that's the main point. That once you recover the ball, if you're not capable to keep it for a time, at the end of the day, you are going to start to drop, and you are going to play very near your box. So at the moment, I think that we have identified what do we have to improve on, and continue doing what we are doing well, and improve on the things that we can improve.
So, as usual for Carlos, no hyperbole there. Not too excited when they win, not too down when they lose. That's what we'd expect from Carlos, but not necessarily from you, my friend. So, is this a little blip, or are there some alarming concerns here for this team?
I think there are certainly a few concerns, and maybe the biggest one is, going in or after this offseason, we didn't realize maybe how much turnover there was at this club. And, I've found some of the new players coming in haven't been quite able to adapt to the system perfectly well. You look at, we met at right back. I think he's had his struggles, and, moving Acosta to the midfield, I haven't necessarily loved that, but particularly in attack, which is so important to what they do defensively. Salter really isolated in this one, cut a really frustrated figure when he went off, and, he's had a hard time holding up the ball. And then when he does, there's no one even close to him, as their lines are too far back or too wide. If you look at the wingers as well, they haven't been able to maybe connect. And, I think to almost pick on a player here, he's 18 years old, John Agnelasi, a guy who, the fine margins of football, he could have, won them a match the week before and tied this match with 2 tap-ins that I think on most weeks a player like him would finish. But, this is a guy with all kinds of talent. He's got that interest in taking on guys 1v1. That's something dynamic that he brings to this attack. But you got to pick your moments in this Ottawa system. And, sometimes it's not the right move to try and nutmeg Lasana. Sometimes, when you haven't had the ball for a long period of time, you just check it back to someone who can hold it. You recycle for a little bit. You let your defenders have a little bit of rest. And I think, that's something that they haven't done well enough. And Carlos touched on it there, was being able to hold possession for those little periods of time, which allow them to, get out of their defensive shape. So you would have expected them to hit the ground running a little bit more. They have that advantage of the Madrid preseason, which I think that, is should be an advantage for this club. And I just think that it hasn't worked so far this year.
No, I mean, nobody really wants to talk about last season when it comes to some things with Athletic Ottawa. They're just all about focusing going forward. But it's just a reminder, this is a team that won the regular season last year. They know how to get things done. But by winning the regular season last year, they were still 6 out of 8 in expected goals, 7th out of 8 in possession last season, and 8 out of 8 in penalty area entries. So even last season, they had issues igniting an attack. They need to move that forward and certainly work on that. Part of that solution, of course, was the signing of Noah Verhoeven, who came over from the aforementioned York United. He was this time on the losing end of that game, and here he is after this game.
Yeah, I think it's something that we can build on. We'll watch the game back and see different moments like that. But definitely, this is a game where we'll look to take the positives, which is probably a lot of the second half, and then, try and build as a group. And like I said, we have a lot of potential. So now it's just about finding it.
Yeah, and obviously they've got some time to do that. We talked about what's next for York. Friday night against Forge, and then a Whitecaps game in the Canadian Championship in midweek to follow. Get your tickets for either of those ones. Boy, they're going to be exciting. So what about Atletico Ottawa? What's next for them, Mitch? And should we say that this is a massive week for them?
I think so. I think this is another very intriguing matchup for them. Obviously, they've got Pacific on Saturday at home. Again, another opportunity to maybe get that much needed win at home and against the team that they played in the CPL semifinals last year. That'll be a good rematch, I think, for Pacific, wanting certainly something out of that. So that's certainly one you'll want to circle on the calendar.
Look out for that one this Saturday evening. Of course, all games live on One Soccer. And of course, catch Mitchell Tierney's fine work at campio.ca and all across Canadian Premier League socials. Thanks, Mitch. We'll speak to you next week. Last but not least, we head out east, where a jam-packed Wanderers grounds backed a new look Halifax Wanderers. Our man watching this one for us, we'll bring in Alex Gangu-Ruzik, who worked this one. AGR, before we get into this, we're asking everyone right now, who's winning the Stanley Cup? Who do you think?
As a unfortunate Canucks fan over here, I'm not touching the Leafs or anything of the like. So sorry to all the Leafs fans out there, but I think from what I've seen, the Oilers, I mean, they have the best player, and they managed to get past the Kings. And I don't know, I look at their path, I think this could be an Oilers year.
Oilers, wow. Okay, they're playing Vegas, and the guys in the chat say Vegas to get to the Stanley Cup final, so those going to watch Canada in the Nations League can watch a Stanley Cup final at the same time. Love that shout by CMAC in the chat. So good reason to root against the Oilers if you're a Canadian soccer fan. All right, AGR, let's bring you on and talk about what was a fascinating game again on Saturday for Halifax. This is always a team that entertains us. Did they entertain you? Overall, what number out of 10 would you give this one as they welcomed in Vancouver Football Club?
Yeah, I mean, it would be hard to give a home opener at a sold-out Wanderers grounds anything but, at least a 7. And I think I'm going to go a 7 just because in the end, the second half, maybe we were left a bit wanting, but the first half was certainly entertaining. Halifax came out just electric, flying. You heard the words of Patrice Geyser the day before, how, he was saying how he wanted this club to represent the community and play for the fans. And they got the memo, at least in the first 30 minutes. They were electric all over Vancouver, getting chance after chance. But Vancouver, they're plucky. They're almost annoying to play against, it looks like, because you think they're down and out in this game, and they just kind of flicked the switch. And it all started with a bold substitution from Ashton Gottby. Brings off a player making his first pro start, brings in a player who had a bit of discipline trouble within the club in the week. It's a bold decision, but pays off. They looked excellent immediately after they made that switch to bring off Nathaniel St. Louis and bring on Nima Moazeni-Zade. And then from the rest of the game, it looked like they were pushing, they were knocking on the door and frustrating Halifax, and Halifax just couldn't play through them. So overall, I think it was a deserved 1-1 draw, but that first half in particular was very compelling.
Yeah, really good game. I love doing it for One Soccer as well. I'm going to get into Vancouver shortly. Let's start with the home team. You're a bit of a fellow tactician like myself as well. I want to do a deep dive on this team, this Halifax Wanderers team, now 3 games in. I think it's clear, AGR, we now know what it says on the tin, right? They're an easy on the eye team. They keep the ball down. Caligari in midfield, again, led all players with the amount of touches. He looks like a star. They could easily been up 3-0 in the game early in the game in the first half an hour, and they could easily be 3-0 in the CPL. In the end, they weren't 3-0 up, and they're not 3-0, and they haven't won a game. In fact, they've given up 6 points from winning positions already. They only gave up 2 all season last season. So what do we really make of them at the moment in terms of what you're watching?
Yeah, I think it's something where, like you said, we know what they are, but also I think it's something where they're still a work in progress. I think we saw that week 1, for example. They played great against Ottawa, but they looked a little more prone in transition than you would have liked to see. They fixed that for the next week. Now you look at their team, they're starting games excellently. Like every time you watch them in the first 25 minutes, like I think the first 25 minutes of each game they played has been the best 25 minutes of arguably anyone in the league. Like when they're on, it's stunning. It's quick. They play so great. But as Patrice mentioned after the game, and I think it's a great point, they almost need a second to fall, because they're a team that they do a lot of running. They're very aggressive. Guys, I was noting after the game, they run more than Man City does, which, isn't easy, because Man City, they run a lot of hard kilometers. So maybe it's something that early in this season, they don't have the fitness levels yet to maintain the way they want to play over the course of 90 minutes. And because of that, when that second goal doesn't fall, naturally you sag back, like, we're up 1-0. Maybe we can rest a little, especially right before a halftime where they've already allowed 2 goals this year. And then another team can pounce. And, I think in particular as well, there's some questions to be had in terms of not their defending, because I think when they're set behind the ball, they've shown good structure, but their defending rotations. Again, another thing, you look at their system, Riley Ferrazzo, I love the way he tucks inside in possession, but sometimes he's supposed to be a right back off the ball. There's times where he's left center mid. When you turn over the ball, that's a huge gap to have to fill, and that's where that running comes into play. So I think for Halifax, their next big goals are find a way to get a second goal, because if you're going to dominate, get 2, you're not losing many leads. 1, as we've seen across the CPL, even like, the Cavalry Valor game where Cavalry was all over Valor, 1 goal is not enough to see a game over a line. But if you get 2, you can get that. And I think defensively, try to find a way to tighten those rotations. I think that will be fitness. I think that'll just be, practice as the year goes along, because Halifax shown great glimpses, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's been a breath of fresh air, no doubt, and they're still awaiting their first win. But here's some more thoughts on their performance from their head coach, Patrice Geyser.
Thought that first 30 was majestic. Great ball movement, great goal, and things we worked on. And you know what? Credit to Vancouver. They kept going. They came back at us. No problem. We go to half, and I still thought we did enough in the second half to get something. But, it is 3rd game of the season. You do have 15 new players. We did start March 1st. Not to make excuses. I'm proud of the guys for how they finished the game. But we just got to, same story, got to find that complete 90. So we'll get to it.
That complete 90. On the other side, let's talk about Vancouver Football Club. You mentioned it. They made some big adjustments. Jeremy St. Louis made his first professional start and was removed during the first half. Never easy to see. But you know what? certainly helped the fact that it worked. I'm going to get your comments on what you think about Vancouver shortly, but before that, let's go back to Wanderers grounds and let's hear from the manager, Ashvin Gobbi.
I think we deserved that goal because we created multiple chances in the last moments of the game. I was hoping at halftime that we can sort it out and in the second half even play better football, but unfortunately I think we didn't have the legs, even though we had the will. So mentally, I think we wanted to play better, but physically, you could see that we didn't have the power to do the things we wanted to do. So I think in the second half, I was not happy with our performance, even though we had an unbelievable chance to win the game in those last 15 minutes. So again, overall, I think it's a fair result. I think Halifax is a great team. It's a team that I think will do many good things in the coming games, and I'm sure we'll see them in the playoffs.
A hammer. We'll see them in the playoffs. I mean, let's just get into this. They've not played a home game yet. Caden Chung's been magnificent for them. I thought Romeo had a really good game again. Callum Irvin's been one of the best goalies in the league. Batar's been one of the best players in the league. Hundell scoring goals, and Gail Sandoval starting to find his fitness and quality. And then now he's talking about playoffs. I mean, this is accelerating pretty quickly down the highway. You know how quickly this Vancouver Football Club's starting to come together? I mean, we keep our things pretty close to the vest a lot of the times here and be conservative a lot of these things. But can we go this far? I mean, what do you think so far of this team as you get to head towards the home opener this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, not often you see managers week 3 talk about playoffs, let alone managers who's coached their teams 3 times. But I mean, it's something where, you know what, I respect the confidence, and he's not. I guess it's not that exaggerated based on what he's seen. Like the fact that they've gone out 3 games on the road, their first 3 ever games, and they looked fine in all of them. They went to Pacific, hung on for 80, and then they go to York and win. You're like, okay, there's something going on. Now they go to Halifax, go down early, claw back there, for the first time, and had their chances to win. I'm like, okay, that's a team that certainly they're not looking like a brand new team. Let's just say that they look like a team that's already been together for a while. So, credit has to be given to Gottby. I think we expected this team to be very organized coming into the year, and they've been that. But I've just, I've liked how things have accelerated in the offensive side. All of a sudden, getting that front 3 of Batar, Sandoval, Hundell could be, it has the potential to be one of the best in the league. Just the way Batar is playing around right now, he's been, out of this world. And Sandoval has the quality. It's someone where he feels like he's at 60, 70%, yet, he'll be jogging along on a transition moment and just casually cut back and deliver that inch perfect assist that he did to Hundell. And Hundell maybe should have 5 or 6 goals, but strikers who get into those sorts of positions, they'll score their goals eventually. So overall, I mean, lots to like with Vancouver. Early days, and I think now they're gonna have to go home and make their home a fortress before we declare them an early playoff surprise. But yeah. I love the confidence, and certainly they've been playing the style to match the confidence.
Yeah, they certainly have lots to like about them, and lots of love for their striped kit that they debuted in Halifax on the weekend as well. So it's a nice one. Another great Macron kit in the Canadian Premier League. You mentioned Gabby Batar, one of the best players so far in the CPL. Here's his thoughts after another draw by Vancouver.
Yeah, I mean, being it our 3rd professional game as a club, I mean, I feel like we're very tactically sound. We're really good when we're out of possession and we have to defend. So I feel like it's only going to be up from here. You know what I mean? Like you said, we've been together for a month and a half, 2 months. So I mean, we're only going to get better. Our chemistry is going to grow, and sky's the limit for us.
Okay, AJ, we're into our last couple of minutes here, so we'll keep this brief. Time for a list of your greats who stood out above the rest in this one for you.
Yeah, well, this week I'm going to go one for each team, and I think we saw the main man for Vancouver. It was Batar. He's just been excellent again. I love this role he's playing where it's not quite the 9 he played in college, but it's not, or in university sports, but it's not quite the 10 he played last year, or 8 really for Edmonton. He's kind of just playing this free, go do your thing in the final third. Last week it was creating chances. This week it was getting chances. He's been dropping dimes on plates for teammates. He's been getting these strikes. He should have a goal or 2. It's been a bit unlucky, and Fillion certainly robbed him on that one big chance. He's looking phenomenal. He's looking like someone who could really stir the drink, and I think that's huge because you looked at this Vancouver team. Everyone's saying Sandoval. Batar's, been, carrying the load there. And I think that's huge because Sandoval hasn't been fully up to fitness. Ashvin Gotby mentioned it after the game. He's still not there yet. He had some niggles. He had some knocks. He has to get out of his system. And that's scary to think that, okay, Batar can kind of carry the load. And then when him and Sandoval are fully clicking, that's a good formula. So lost to like with Batar there. He's been excellent. And then as for the Wanderers, I think it was interesting to see Teo Colombe, the former Whitecaps draftee, come in and score a goal. And not just score a goal. He was very active, very involved, finished with 3 shots and 3 key passes, which is always a good return from a striker. And I think that's interesting because Kosi Nwanfarso looks good up front, and he's someone who can get on the end of chances, but he's not as mobile, say, as a guy like Cologne, who is just, constantly relentless, making these runs, opening up space. And I think for that Halifax system, they almost need a bit of that, someone who can drop into feet and play a bit, whereas Nwanfarso, he's always making those channel runs. And, that's not a bad thing, but he just wasn't getting seen on some of those runs. And I think the fact that Cologne has come in and done that when you compared to what Nwanfarso and also Coimbra, who, again, very bright talent, but he was also someone who wants to run a lot, and maybe the Wanderers needed a guy playing the feet. I think Cologne provided that, and I think even beyond his goal, he helped that attack in a lot more ways than just that.
Yeah, certainly changed their identity. Here's some reaction from him. Here's the goal scorer, Theo Colombe.
Yeah, it felt amazing. Like the people here, the city, everyone is around that team. Everyone is behind that team. So like starting my first game, scoring the first goal of the season here. And that was just awesome. Like all the people showing up, that was amazing.
All right, what's next for these two is pretty clear. We talked about it already. Halifax go to Winnipeg on Saturday in the first game on Live on One Soccer. That will be, I think, 3:00 local in Winnipeg. And then, of course, you go to Langley on Sunday. AGR, quick one. What can you look forward to the most about the first ever home game for Vancouver Football Club?
Yeah, it's going to be special. I think it's just going to be great to see the stadium finally come together, to see all the fans. Certainly the players will be excited to play in front of their home support. Certainly sounds like the people at Vancouver FC have been putting in some extra work just to make sure those seats are filled, to make sure every last detail is in place. They're using that whole brick by brick motto. So I'm just excited to see the day come together for everyone there at the club, and just how hard they worked to get to this point, and also just a chance for a special moment in BC soccer, just that chance to open to christen a new club's arrival in the province. I think the derby was of good taste. You got your 150 away fans. Okay, this team's got something about it. So now to see a full fans section, to see all the other fans who've come out and checking out this new team, and hopefully it's an exciting game. They're playing Cavalry. They're going to want to come in, be the villains, be the spoilers. I don't think that's a bad thing. Maybe Cavalry scores and they rile up the crowd, and then Vancouver FC responds. I think either way you look at it, it's going to be a good matchup on the field, and just a great day for community, I think, is going to be the big one off of it.
Yeah, great day for the community. Get out there and get the tickets. Go support it. You get one chance to go to a first ever game. Enjoy it, everybody out there in a great market out there on the West Coast. And not only that, are you going to see a start of a new franchise at home, an entertaining one as well, with some real players making a difference on the pitch so far in the Canadian Premier League. AGR, thanks a lot for your time. Continue to read campl.ca, and of course on One Soccer, AGR there as well. We'll chat with you next week as we recap that game, obviously in Vancouver, where AGR will be on Sunday. All right, take a look at the early standings in the Canadian Premier League through 3 weeks, and it is, of course, very, very tight. Lots of chat in about parity so far in the Canadian Premier League, and you can see it right there. Nobody has had a lot of time to really dominate. Not a lot of victories, a lot of draws. Valor and Forge on 5. Vancouver Football Club on 4 with Pacific, and then York United with a big win, but a big goal by Mo Babuli on 3 ahead of Cavalry, and then of course Halifax Wanderers as well on 3 of the 3 draws, and Atletico Ottawa. It is early, but at the moment the regular season champions from 2022, who went from worst to first from 2021 to 2022, have suddenly gone from first to worst in the early part of 2023. Let's take a look at what's to come this week, and we are delighted to say that we've got 4 games on 3 different days, kicking off Friday night at York Lions Stadium against York United against Forge at 7:30 Eastern. A reminder, all games live on One Soccer. We'll be in Winnipeg for Valor against Halifax, and then obviously Atletico Ottawa take on Pacific on the nightcap on Saturday. That is going to be big as well. And then the aforementioned home opener, the first ever game for Vancouver Football Club against Cavalry at 4 o'clock Pacific. That should be fantastic. It has been a brilliant start to the Canadian Premier League. Let's recap week 3. Thanks for joining us. Thanks to my guests, and we'll join you and we'll speak to you again next week.
Fernandez, a given release, and Colomb is in with the flag down. Teo Colomb laces that into the gaping net in behind Callum Irving. Is one of the best from set pieces. Can he create a little bit of magic here for York United? Mo Babouli, he's done it! He's found a little bit of magic. It is all over and York United have their first win of the 2023 season.